Hello, I'm Greg, EG.IdrA Fields, and this is an EG replay review. And this game will be me versus ISJ Echo on the map Cloud Kingdom. Here we have me as the blue Zerg in the bottom left, and Echo as the red Zerg in the top right. This was a ladder game where I use a style I've been experimenting with recently, ZvZ, which is a very fast third base, which is somewhat common, but instead of going banelings or heavy on roaches, as a lot of players do to secure that base, I actually get very quick +1 carapace upgrade for my Zerglings, and then play very Zergling heavy. This, well, +1 carapace Zerglings take 2 hits, die from banelings, and they also nullify the effect of +1 attack on roaches. +1 attack roaches kill unupgraded Zerglings in 2 shots, but they kill carapace Zerglings in 3 shots. So it makes your Zerglings much more effective. And the pure amount of Zerglings you can get, they give you a lot of map control and just very good aggressive potential. If your opponent tries to take a third base too quickly, or if he goes mutas too quickly, you can just spread him out, attack everywhere at once with massive number of upgraded Zerglings. And it really lets you control the flow of the early game much better than you usually can in ZvZ if you take that very quick third base. So it allows you to secure a good economy while also giving you the potential to put pressure on your opponent if they're being too greedy, either in tech or in economy. So a very good, diverse build. It does have some weaknesses. Roach bait and all-ins are very powerful versus it, so you have to be sure to get early scouting Zerglings in your opponent's base as quickly as possible. Otherwise, that can be a pretty bad threat that you have to deal with. However, if you make it into the mid-game, you're in very good shape. You already have an upgrade. You already have a very good economy to build off of. And so you can, and it's also a very diverse build. As you get carapace, you can either switch into roaches, or you can stay with lings and go infestors and head towards hive tech very quickly. That's usually the better option if your opponent is playing defensively, if they went for a very quick lair tech themselves. Whereas if your opponent is going roaches, then it's often better to switch to roaches yourself and just play roach versus roach from a better economy. Here we can see I opened 15 hatchery, whereas Echo opened 14 pool expansion. So that's a slight economic advantage for me. Also, you do have to get a couple of banelings with this build. The carapace does not kick in fast enough, and you don't want to have to build a ton of spine crawlers. So you do need just a handful of early defensive banelings. But beyond that, you're going to be producing almost purely Zerglings. And here we can see I was actually going to put down the carapace first, but I saw his attack moving out, put down a baneling nest instead, realizing I would need that to defend. Also put down this additional spine crawler. He went for a very fast baneling build. This is not particularly usual. He left 2 drones on gas right from the start, so this is something you're not really used to dealing with. But putting down that second spine crawler and producing Zerglings immediately, as well as a third queen I had been producing that actually ended up dying, that bought me enough time to survive this attack. And so now we'll transition into a more normal phase of the game. I'll put down evolution chamber soon. I'll take my third base soon, and then we'll get into the Zergling versus Zergling portion of the game. And there goes the evolution chamber. My baneling nest has now finished as well, so I'm pretty safe for early Zergling threats. And I had to produce a large amount of Zerglings in order to deal with that early aggression. Whenever you do that, you should go and at least try to be aggressive. You can always run away if it doesn't work out, or if your opponent has sufficient defenses. And sometimes you'll do a lot of damage, like there getting the queen kill is very good for me. And often you'll just scare your opponent and force them to make more Zerglings instead of drones, which obviously a very, very good thing. You always want your opponent to be producing units instead of workers, as long as you can then hold off their counterattack, which is the only thing you have to be conscious of in that situation. And there goes the third base and carapace. You'll generally start them around the same time. There's so much early aggression and build order variance in early game ZvZ that it's hard to set out an exact build order for this, but generally you'll be expanding around the 6 or 6:30 mark. Here obviously it took some early aggression, so I'm headed out to take the expansion a little bit before 8 minutes in, so a little bit slower. However, his economy was also delayed as he produced so many Zerglings early on, so we're still at about an even mark in the game. And here he immediately puts down his third base in response, as is relatively normal. However, he does not have that carapace upgrade coming. He's putting down a roach warren instead, and he's producing additional banelings, whereas instead I can focus entirely on Zerglings. I don't have to spend any gas or additional resources on tech buildings, which will allow me to have many more Zerglings and allow me to do quite a bit of damage to him. Also, it just gives me map control. I'm in his base and I know what's going on. That, obviously, a pretty good baneling hit for him. That didn't work out too well for me. But we see I'm beginning the Zergling production. I'm still mixing in drones. that's the nice part about Zerglings and drones. They're very, very resource light on resources. You can continue to produce a large number of drones as you produce Zerglings without really sacrificing too much. As long as you force an equivalent amount of Zerglings, at least, out of your opponent, it means you'll have equivalent economies. Here we see him heading up towards lair. This is pretty standard, but a little bit risky. If you're in this situation, that's very good for. This is a very good situation for me, as he's investing resources into lair, into roach tech. He's not producing a ton of units or a ton of drones, so this is going to allow me to go ahead and be aggressive with this. We see another baneling hit. However, Carapace is about to kick in. That's when I'll really start to fight very efficiently versus him. And here we can see I'll win the Zergling fight pretty easily, even though they were equivalent numbers. And then I have more Zerglings streaming in, continuing to produce additional Zerglings. Even though I was mixing in drones, it is very important to be aggressive with this build. The Zerglings give you a really good advantage in Zergling versus Zergling, Zergling versus baneling, or even Zergling versus roach fights. So it's important to press that advantage if you can. Also, we can see I know that he's going roach, so I'm getting the +1 ranged attack. The +1 ranged attack after my Carapace finishes, as I am anticipating a transition into roaches. And here we can see just continued Zergling production. Not the best Zergling control versus that baneling there, but still done a lot of damage to him. Forced him to produce a lot of Zerglings, and I have more Zerglings on the way, so he cannot be comfortable yet, while I continue to produce drones behind that. As I'm the aggressor, I control the pace of the game. I always know exactly how much pressure I'm going to apply to him, whereas he doesn't know. I could be all-inning, or I could be making a handful of drones behind every attack. It just makes him very uncomfortable and allows me to make better decisions than him. And that was the effect of that +1 Carapace. It took 2 banelings for every Zergling, so that did a lot of additional damage there. And here he has the roaches out. He's pretty much stabilized as I'm pulling back and producing a ton of drones. However, he's lost a lot of drones. He didn't have full drone production the entire time. And we can see I already have an 8 drone lead, as well as I feel much safer as I have those Zerglings out. I have a little bit more map control. If he tries to move out with roaches, I can just counterattack with those Zerglings, take advantage of their mobility, which means that I feel a little bit safer. I'm going to go ahead and get an infestation pit. I'm getting double upgrades, whereas he is still producing a lot of roaches because he feels uncomfortable. He feels that I might be able to go in and attack him at any point. So he has to play more scared than I do. I also already have my 4th hatchery down. His is just now about to complete. So that's also a production advantage for myself. And as soon as my roach warren finishes, I start the roach upgrades, start producing roaches. I know he has a lot of roaches, and if he decided to all in, I would need a good number of roaches myself in order to hold that off. Also see that he does not have his 5th and 6th gases yet with this Overlord. That's a pretty good sign that they're going to try and be aggressive. Obviously, he's not going to head up towards infestors. That's just 4 gas. So he's not really preparing to transition. He's sticking on roaches for a long time. That almost always indicates an attack. So at this point, I'm producing pure units. I'm getting my infestor count up at this point, and then we'll switch back into roach production as soon as I have enough gas. I've actually produced another handful of drones as well, and put it on the 4th base. And here we can see him continuing unit production. However, he is on very low upgrades. I am nearing 2 Carapace and already have +1 attack, whereas he's just at +1, just now starting +2. So that's a pretty significant advantage for me as well. That initial upgrade for the Zerglings, as I said, since you get Carapace, it transitions well into both Roach or Zergling-based play in the mid-game and gives you that upgrade advantage that's incredibly important in Roach vs. Roach games, ZvZ. Now we can see he has a big supply advantage. However, he does not have any infestors, and he has a much lower drone count, 20 drones lower. So as long as I hold off this attack, I'll be in great shape. That is a large number of roaches, a pretty big roach advantage on myself, so this 4th base is likely to fall. However, as long as I maintain 3 bases with a drone and production and gas and tech advantage, I'll be in fine shape. This 4th base really isn't all that important. However, it is important to hold at this point, and that's why I put down those additional 2 spine crawlers. And you can see I have a lot more roaches in production. So even if he were able to get in here and break it, I have a lot of reinforcements on the way. And now at this point, I see my massive upgrade advantage. He's 0-1, I'm 2-1. I also have all those infestors. So I feel that even though he's in a good position, this is going to be a good time to try and break out, try and resecure that 4th base, and to take down his roach count a little bit. You see dancing around, but pretty soon here I'll go down and commit to an attack. And this is obviously a very, very bad position for me. He had that nice concave spread out. Yes, I had his units spread out so they didn't take full damage from fungal. I have a lot of roaches trapped in here. This is an inefficient fight for me. However, I have those infestors, so I feel I can make the best of it. And I also have much better economy, so I feel I can produce a lot more than him. And my upgrades helps pretty significantly. Those roaches are just not dying as fast as his are. And here we can see my additional roaches on the way out. That will help to clean up this. And these roaches are fighting just fine for themselves. An additional fungal helps a lot as well. And if we look at the economies, I still have a very big harvester lead. So the fact that I have pushed back this attack is means I'm in just fine position. I also have a hive on the way to get the early 3/3 upgrades. In dedicated roach versus roach fights, where both sides have armies that are too big to really transition into a hive tech, it can be pretty scary to head towards broodlords when your opponent's roach army could kill you at any time. It's okay to go hive just to get the 3/3 upgrades. Upgrades are very, very important in the roach versus roach battles, so it's often worthwhile to go ahead and just try and get that 3/3 upgrade without getting towards broodlords or anything both ways. Here we can see he's pretty desperate to push in and try and do some kind of damage because he knows he sacrifices economy a lot early on. That was a great defensive position for me there, really helped me win the fight very efficiently. There, a little bit of roach versus roach micro. You always want to be able to move in as close as possible when you have more roaches so that your back forces are shooting his roaches out being effective. There we see that there's some roaches running around behind the back lines, so just out of range. Obviously very inefficient. Here coming down and taking this 4th base, as this has been a point of contention. He wasn't allowing me to take that base, so I took this one instead, and I'll take this one as well pretty quickly. Very important to secure that 4th base. As I see that he has this hatchery, and if he maintains his army advantage, his roach versus roach advantage, he could just put out a round of drones at any time, populate the space, and then have an economic lead. So it's very important for me to get that 4th hatchery down as well. And here we can see my hive has finished. I have stabilized. I'm very low on gas, so I wait until I have stabilized and won a big army battle to start the 3/3 upgrades. And now I know I have a superior army, especially given my infestors and the additional roaches and better roach upgrades. He still does not have any carapace, whereas I have 2/2. I know that I'm now safe to go ahead and start those 3/3 upgrades. Also to populate this base. Put down a bunch of spine crawlers immediately. That's very important when you have a spread out base like this in ZvZ, as just sending a handful of roaches out down here would completely shut this down if it weren't for those spine crawlers. And having to fragment your army in ZvZ can be very, very uncomfortable defensively. And here, the game is pretty much stabilized. I'm just building up my economy and securing my lead. He's trying to play economic catch-up. We see that round of 13 drones on the way out to try and populate the space, but kind of too little too late. We can already see the massive income advantage I have translating into a very big bank, which means that as soon as we actually have a roach versus roach engagement, I'll be able to resupply much more quickly than him. And I know this, so I'm moving my army out to try and be aggressive in some way. At this point, I want a battle to happen because I know that I have a much better income, I have much better production capabilities, and that's really my big advantage. So I want to fight him to trade units because I know I'll be able to resupply faster than he will. If we just both sit and build up a max army, then that gives him a very powerful fighting force. If I get caught in a bad position, bad engagement, or he gets some very efficient fungals, he could actually just eliminate my army fast enough that he can go in and do game-ending damage. So it's very important for me to continue trading with him and just take advantage of my advantage. Here we can see, not the best position for me. I'm obviously trapped on this ramp, and he had really good fungals. He has a much bigger roach concave, so he won that battle. He was more efficient there. But again, I have 25 roaches and 5 infestors on the way, whereas he has 22 roaches and 1 infestor on the way, with much inferior upgrades. I'm about to finish 3/3, whereas he's now just getting +1 carapace. Also, a good little fungal on the retreat there. Did a bunch of extra damage to his roaches. And here we can see my reinforcements kicking in. Just a huge number of roaches versus his. Spreading out, taking advantage of this area, getting myself the better concave for this battle. Very, very important in ZvZ. Obviously, it makes your roaches much more efficient. I also have this fungal. Just a little bit of a mistake right in me there not to use it right away. Could have trapped him there and got a bunch of extra kills. But if we look at the supplies, I'm already remaxed back at 200 despite constant fighting, and he's only at 178 supply. Plus my +3 carapace is about to finish. And once you're at 3/3 upgrades versus the 1/2 of your opponent, that's just an absolutely ridiculous advantage in ZvZ. I've also secured this 5th base. and I've secured my 4th base, and I have a 5th base on the way. So that's a pretty big economic lead for me as well. Getting to this point in the game when you have spare resources, burrow is something that you often get mid-game, but if you don't have it yet, it becomes absolutely crucial to have it at this point. Burrow, obviously, in Roach vs. Roach fights with infestors, you'll often end up with a bunch of very, very heavily damaged roaches, so burrow is very important. And this was just an absolutely awful attack on me. I overestimated my advantage if I could go in for a kill. Obviously, I'm resupplying immediately. I still have a ton of money, and I salvaged most of my infestors from that battle. So it's not too bad of a situation, given that I had enough of an advantage to just stomach those losses. But obviously, you don't want to attack into that situation. That was just something that you don't do. Putting up a bunch of spine crawlers. I know that after losing that army, he might be able to go in and do some kind of damage to me, but I know that I still have a big economic lead, so it's worthwhile to put down some static defense just to be careful. However, here we already have a massive army coming out. I still have the big upgrade advantage, and he just doesn't have as many units as I do. So, just a fine situation and continue putting on the pressure. I know that I have a pretty good advantage, and in this situation, it's good to be aggressive with your advantage, and just to keep resupplying, and as I said, take advantage of the fact that I can produce more units more quickly than him. And here coming in, getting a bunch of good fungals, getting a really good arc. The efficiency of my rush is absolutely destroying the efficiency of his due to the upgrades, as well as the positioning. And so this 4th base will fall, and that's essentially the end of the game. There's not too much he can do from here. He'll hold off and try and make a final stand with all those infestors up here, but it doesn't really matter at this point. If we look at the supplies, he's down nearly 70 supply, down in upgrades and in tech. I'm heading up towards Spire to get Broodlords just in case I need that as a killing blow. Spine Infestor can be very efficient defensively, so might need Broodlords to finish him off, but the game is pretty much over at this point. Just too much of an economic lead. You can see I am sending overseers around trying to look for a good place to attack into him. Cloud Kingdom, lots of ramps, lots of tight chokes all over. It can be pretty difficult to attack into your opponent. So I'm going to go ahead and swing up around here and try for a better angle, not go up a ramp again, as that didn't work out too well in the past. Over here, spreading your units out, very important in Roach vs. Roach. You saw I took a group and had moved them up to this area and moved them out of this area. That gave me a better concave to get while my roaches fighting at once. Important to control things like that, help a lot in ZvZ. And here, I'm into his base. With this Infestor Harass does kill that, but just killing one expansion is not a huge deal at this point in the game. I already have Broodlords out, and killed a bunch of the drones there. And so at this point, just kind of moving in for the kill. I've already transferred those drones over to this new base, and he sees the Broodlords, and he GG's. That was an EG replay review. If you enjoy this content, please go to evilgeniuses.net and check out a bunch of other similar videos and content we produce. Thank you for watching.